We'll start off with a roll call. Mr. Catalano, please.
Mr. Bedford. Here. Ms. Crooked.
Here.
Ms. Hogue.
Here.
Ms. Hogarth.
Here.
Ms. Kuttner.
Here.
Ms. Paoli.
Here.
Mr. Vecchio.
Yes, here.
Vice President Seidel.
Here.
And President Sandillo.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Don't worry, that usually catches the online people off guard. Mr. Catalano, now please read the statement concerning open public meetings.
Public notice of this meeting pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act has been given by the Superintendent of Schools in the following manner. On January 15th, 2021, notice of this meeting was posted on the interior of the school administration offices, 1 Lincoln Avenue, Haddonfield. Written notice was submitted and filed with the Haddonfield Borough Clerk, and notices were faxed to the Courier Post and mailed to the Retrospect newspaper.
Apologies for starting late. We were in executive session. It started at 6:37 until we opened this meeting. We were discussing contracts and a parent issue. Now we'll move to items for board information, student accommodations. I see we have a lot of students online. Why don't we go with, I see mostly adults online. So Mr. Licata, why don't you start off?
Absolutely, Mr. Seidel. Thank you very much to the Haddonfield Board of Education for having us here this evening. We have a number of students to recognize, and we're so happy for that opportunity. We will first start with Miss Ann Feinlieb. She is going to recognize some of our students who did an outstanding job on the 2021 National German exam, and this is an exam that is sponsored by the American Association of Teachers of German. So take it away, Ms. Feinlieb.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you to all the students and parents for joining us. It's an honor to be here, and it's become a nice tradition every single year. The Board of Education is nice enough to pick up the tab for students' participation fees for level 3 and 4. This year, we have outstanding results. 49% of our participants were awarded either medals or achievement awards by the American Association of Teachers of German. And it informs the instruction, and it also gives everyone an opportunity to compare our achievements on the national level and to our counterparts in Canada. So I'm happy to start with the medal winners. And here's our own Chloe Ganzo, our gold medalist in level 3. Chloe scored in the 97th percentile within the Southern New Jersey chapter, and went through a series of rigorous interviews in the target language to also be awarded a full scholarship at the America's premier residential and virtual immersion language program in Concordia Language Village in Minnesota. We are a little disappointed that Chloe will not be traveling to Germany due to the existing pandemic conditions, but we're looking forward to next year and then the year after. So Chloe Ganzo, the gold medal.
Do we have a
Chloe, if you can say hello so you'll pop up on our screen, that would be great.
She's in the bottom one.
Oh, there you go. Say hi, Chloe.
Hello, Naka.
Okay, next, our silver medalists. First, the 10th graders, and then the juniors. So 10th grade gold medal awarded by AATG, Christopher Carr.
You say hi, Christopher.
Maybe Chris couldn't make it. We'll find out. Alexis Guerreri, silver medal.
Hello, danke schön.
Gavin Kopp, 10th grade, silver medal. Okay, we'll relay congratulations to Gavin. Hold on one second. Kevin Miller, 10th grade, silver medal. And junior, 11th grade, James Duncan, silver medal.
Vielen Dank.
James, junior medal.
Danke.
Next, the bronze medalists, again, beginning with sophomores, Macklin Plunkett, bronze medal.
Every student should say thank you. We can see your face. If you're on, say thank you.
I think a lot of people are involved in theater rehearsals and athletic competitions, so we're missing a few. Ella Feller, bronze medal.
Danke schön.
Sophia LaPointe, 10th grade, bronze medal. Congratulations, Sophia.
Danke.
Julia Hart, bronze medal.
Vielen Dank.
Nina Stevens, 10th grade, bronze medal.
Vielen Dank.
Okay, juniors, bronze medal, Jack Isles.
Vielen Dank.
Jacob Barrett, bronze medal. Alexis Horkatl, junior, bronze medal. Congratulations. And a lot of achievement awards. Again, starting with the sophomores, Annie Baxter, Achievement Award.
Danke schön.
Henry McFadden, Achievement Award. I think he's in Virginia at the swim meet. But congratulations to Henry. Parker Williams, Achievement Award, 10th grade. Congratulations.
Dankeschön.
Harry George, 10th grade, Achievement Award. Nelson Thayer, a 10th grade, Achievement Award. Jenna Curley, sophomore, Achievement Award.
Danke schön.
Maggie Morris, sophomore, Achievement Award. And finally, our juniors, Courtney Mackey, Achievement Award. Kiki Shim, Achievement Award.
Danke schön.
Shalyn McKenna, Junior, Achievement Award.
Danke.
Matt O'Leary, Junior, Achievement Award. Caitlin Alkanat, 11th grade, Achievement Award. Mia Gagliardi, 11th grade, Achievement Award. And Kelsey Waddington, last but not least, in any way, 11th grade Achievement Award.
Vielen Dank.
So ich gratuliere, my most heartfelt congratulations, and it's an outstanding achievement. We recognize your effort, especially during this challenging year. Thank you very much, people. And thank you very much to the board and all the administration.
Well, I will say when we tuned into the World Language Honor Society, the German club seemed to have the most fun, I'll tell you that. They really enjoyed that presentation. Thank you. Next, Mr. Licata, the Rutgers University Shorebird data training.
Yes. Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Seidel. Thank you again, Ms. Feinlein, and to all the German students. Thank you. We also have tonight Mr. Ron Smith. He is our AP Environmental Science teacher, and he is here to discuss and recognize three students to the Rutgers Junior Science Symposium about their Citizen Community Science Shorebird project. So, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to recognize three of our students. Just a short background on the project. 17 years ago, myself, along with a very small group of students, trained for a new initiative called the Shorebird Citizen Science Project with New Jersey Audubon. And so began a 17-year journey that has brought us today to over 325,000 birds counted, of almost 200 counts made at a critical migratory bird stopover site, North Brigantine Natural Area. And along the way, data that has contributed to the listing of one of our shorebirds, the red knot, as an endangered species, has led us to research in the field with prominent shorebird scientists. A few of our students have gone on, one of them receiving her PhD in shorebird ecology. So a lot of success along the way. This has brought to our program, our students, but all along the way, I've had students frequently ask, what's the data showing? We're very accustomed to passing on the data that we collect to the scientists. And within the last couple of years, that question has continued to, I guess, stick in my mind. And so in the early months, right before COVID, in about January 2020, I managed to recruit, and very willingly so, three students agreed to take on the task of organizing 300,000 plus birds for data crunching and also for what would be passed on to the Western Hemisphere Shorebird Reserve Network. So those three students are here this evening. Not only did they process all that data, but I thought it was worthwhile enough to apply this project for the Rutgers Junior Science Symposium. The project was accepted, and this past January, those three students presented their findings. These students have spent time in the field and have spent hours and hours processing data. And some of that data has actually been requested directly from the science team. And so their name will be forever attached to some really, really important data that's organized for this project. That's accessible by over 100 different conservation organizations in 7 different countries throughout the Western Hemisphere. So they're doing some great work, as have over 1,500 students over the last 17 years who've participated in this project. So it's been a great journey. So anyway, those three students who participated in the Rutgers Science Symposium, that's Claire DeCenzio, Maddie Isner, and Georgia Nussey. I believe they're all with us tonight, and they can say a couple of things. I think that's, or maybe one of them can say a couple of things. They all love public speaking, I will tell you that.
Have each one say their name at least so we can see their faces on the
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead, ladies, you're up.
Hi, I'm Maddie. Hi, I'm Georgia. Sorry, Claire.
Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Their data crunching was a lot more organized than the introduction that they just gave. Anyway, they didn't know they were going to speak tonight, so I didn't mean to put them on the spot. But thanks, and again, special thanks to the administration and the Board of Education for supporting this endeavor over the years. It always, my friends that teach in other districts are always blown away when I tell them the number of field trip dates that I'm granted for these types of projects. So this wouldn't be possible, certainly without the support of the administration and the Board of Education. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you. And I'm sure the birds and the horseshoe crabs, thank you, Mr. Smith. So next we'll move on to recognizing New Jersey PTA Art Reflection Contest winners, and we have recognitions from all 3 schools. I saw Ms. Klein on earlier, so I'll start with Tatum.
Actually, we're going to start with Jerry Bissinger from Haddon, and we have a presentation prepared. Did you want to start it off, Jerry?
Sure. We have very brief remarks prepared here. So thank you very much to everybody for having us. We're excited to recognize some of our students tonight across all 3 schools who participated in the National PTA's Reflections program. A little background on the PTA Reflections program. It's a program that provides opportunities for recognition and access to the arts, which boosts student confidence and success in the arts and in life. Each year, over 300,000 students in pre-K through 12th grade create original works of art in response to a student-selected theme. This is a 50-plus-year-old program that helps students explore their own thoughts, feelings, and ideas, develop artistic literacy, increase confidence, and find a love for learning that will help them become more successful in school and in life.
The Reflections theme for 2020-21 school year was I Matter Because, and students submitted their completed works of art in one or all of the following categories: dance choreography, film production, literature, music composition, photography, and visual arts.
And I think I have the most fun job because I get to announce our amazing students who participated this year in the Art Reflections program from each of the elementary schools. When I say your name, we'll clap for you. You can just unmute yourself and say your name again so that you come up on the screen. So from Elizabeth Haddon Elementary School in dance choreography, we have Rachel Tompkins.
Hello, I'm Rachel.
In film production from Elizabeth Haddon, we have John William Caruso.
Thank you.
From Tatum Elementary School, in film production, we have Josh Devaney.
Hi, I'm Josh.
From Central Elementary School, in film, we have Sean Devaney.
My name's Sean. Thank you for inviting me to the meeting.
Oh, thanks, Sean. From Central Elementary School in dance, we have Rosemary Vest. From Central Elementary School in music composition, we have Rachel Peltz.
Thank you.
From Central Elementary School in photography, we have Luke Teixeira. And our last student is from Central Elementary School in photography, and actually this student received first place, Michael Andalina. We appreciate you taking the time to recognize our students tonight, and they're very proud to be here, so thank you.
Oh, thank you. And congratulations, everyone. We're going to, are there any other commendations, Mr. Klein?
There are none.
All right, super. We're going to move on to the student representative report. We have Maddie Cush on the line to give us the view of what's happening via the student view in the high school.
Yeah, so we have some big things occurring at the high school with the start of phase 3 because students are now in 5 days a week full time. And I think one of the big changes, well, one of the many big changes from last year is we do have an hour lunch, which I think helps to encourage kids to leave. So I know a lot of the upperclassmen can leave and go home for lunch, or they can go out with their friends, and it really allows kids to disperse more so they're not clustered without mass eating lunch. We also have dog time and office hours, which I found to be a very valuable time to communicate with your teachers, and especially for online students who are really lacking that one-on-one time with their teachers. And another benefit is that I think students feel homework is more spread out since they don't have the same classes every single day. But unfortunately, in the last few weeks, there has been a recent increase in cases. And I think it's because largely due to the fact that kids are getting more lenient and letting their guard down a bit. And I know that a lot of kids do fear with this, the increase in cases, that there will be extracurriculars that are canceled. But I think this just shows that there is definitely an incentive to getting a vaccination, because if you have your second vaccination and you're 2 weeks out from your vaccination, then you don't have to quarantine if you get contact traced. And moreover, we have had a lot of discussion about equality in our school, and we're currently looking for ways we can spread awareness about Asian hate crimes, since May is Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And I know we plan to do a human dignity unit. And we also had an equity summit recently, which we had 7 schools attend. We also had special guest Chris Singleton come and speak to everyone. And I know I really enjoyed that. And he talked to everyone about racial injustice and inequality. And also, I think our main goal in this is just to help our students get involved in the global movement to push for more equality for everyone. And in other news, we also had teacher TED Talks, which I think was very fascinating, because I think we learned a lot about teachers that we didn't even know they had expertise in. And also we had a job fair, which I think really allowed our students to kind of get a view on the careers they might want to pursue in the future and those potential jobs, and if they would want to go into them later in life. We also had our 3rd SEL lesson today in the homerooms. And I know that we have our school play tomorrow, and I know the drama students are working extremely hard to put that on, and they are very excited and eager to do that. And I know that something I am particularly excited for is the prom, and the school dances are coming up in the next few weeks, which will kind of give everyone a taste of normalcy that everyone is definitely craving by this point. And lastly, we have been discussing how finals are going to be conducted. And I think it's similar in a sense to midterms, that it's going to be projects and also traditional exams, but it's kind of going to be up to the teachers what they want to give to their students. And overall, in my opinion, I think phase 3 was the right step for our community and our school, because I think students are better able to retain information that they are learning without the distractions of their home and their environment at the home. But that is all I have for today. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Sure, and anybody have any questions for Maddie? I do. So in your finals, which would you prefer? Would you prefer a standard final, a kind of test structure, or do you like those final projects better?
Yeah, I think I've heard a lot of different mixed reviews from different students. I know some students were saying that the projects were a little time consuming, and before they weren't they weren't due on certain dates for all the different classes. So it was very spread out, and you had a project 1 week and then the project due the next week. And I think this final, we talked about with Ms. McHale that we're going to have certain dates that each subject is due for the project. So I think it will be a little bit more concise in when they're going to be due. And I think personally, I like the projects more, because I'm not as stressed that all this is weighing on one single test in 2 hour span. And I don't have to rely on that single 2 span to help my grade. And I can kind of work as much as I want on the project and put in as much effort as I possibly can. But that's just my personal opinion. And I've definitely heard mixed reviews on both of those. But I think that either way, I think that they're both good options, especially because a lot of the AP students, you can test out of the tests. So I think that also helps to sway people's ideas on which they like better.
Mary, thank you.
Yeah.
So next we're going to move to presentations. We're going to invite everyone to stay around for this. It's a presentation near and dear to most, because you occupy these buildings, and that is a maintenance plan and how we go about planning maintenance in the buildings, and it's going to be presented by our business administrator and board secretary, Mr. Michael Catalano. So, Mike.
But of course, if the students have homework and need to sign off, now's a good time if they want to. Well,
Sure.
we welcome you to stay. We just have so many students. I wanted them to know that if they have to go.
So they might want to hear.
Either or.
Alrighty, Mr. Superintendent Klaus asked me to present to the board about our maintenance plan. I have to start by saying I could not have put this together with the help of my facilities director, Mr. Tim McFerrin. This is his presentation too. I'm just the one here telling you all about it. Okay, so Let me start by just boiling this down to a fundamental level. So maintenance, what is maintenance? We can define it in many ways. We define it as preserving our investment, keeping our buildings safe. And some simple examples, maintenance could be as simple as changing a light bulb, mowing our grounds, our lawns, or as complicated as repairing our boilers. So that is maintenance in a nutshell, right? So I did want to sort of break down the difference, right? Maintenance, capital improvement. Capital improvement, I am not going to talk too much tonight about because I have a scheduled presentation next month to talk about just capital improvements. But what makes maintenance and capital improvements different? Well, various things: dollar amount, bidding thresholds, scope of work. A capital project could be a large-scale maintenance project. It's just various things that, Office of School Facilities, Department of Education definitions on what the difference is. That's the verses in all this: maintenance versus capital improvement. Okay. The $35 million bond referendum that we just completed a couple of years ago, roughly, this isn't an exact, but 90% of that project, that was all maintenance. That was putting up new walls at Tatum. That was repairing the B wing from the infrastructure that was already there. And after the referendum, we want to be able to spend money in our operating budget on maintenance. That way, perhaps this board or a future board, that next referendum, maybe we can spend money directly on educational improvements. So that's a big task that we want to accomplish we're approving and adopting the budget tonight. This budget supports maintaining and preserving our investment, our buildings, our grounds. So that's just something key to look at in the future. I just want to bring to the light, so there are challenges we face. We have many different types of authoritative bodies. You can see all the acronyms here. These are just a few of them. But let me talk about the first point on here. The maintenance budget, facilities budget, it is, quite frankly, the easiest place to freeze in our budget and to cut in our budget. Let me give you an example. If Tim McFerrin called me and said, "Mike, our snow blowers aren't looking too good. We need to replace these soon." If we need to dedicate funds somewhere else, I have to tell Tim, "Sorry, you've got to work with those snow blowers or start using more of those shovels." Again, just an example. But that can happen in so many different aspects of the maintenance budget. And I want to emphasize on the Department of Education standards, the Department of Health standards, the administrative code and statute that we have to abide by. CUSAC, there's a double-edged sword in some of these requirements. CUSAC, we have to every year have a walkthrough by December 31st every year, unless it is a CUSAC year for us. It can be done earlier. Walk through our buildings. Look at all of our, go in every room on property we own and evaluate them and submit that to the executive county offices. So, as much as I may complain about some of these things, that there are benefits. It helps us get out there. Again, just touching on some of the hurdles we have to face. Now, how do we accomplish our goals and how do we overcome some of these challenges? Well, first, it truly starts with the board. We need support of the board, and like I said, with you guys are approving the budget tonight. This budget supports maintaining our buildings, keeping our facilities safe for the students and staff that occupy them. Without that, it's very hard to accomplish some of the goals that we have when it comes to facilities. Another thing that helps, hiring qualified staff. When it comes to certain trades, having a licensed mechanic on staff is extremely beneficial from a timing standpoint, a monetary standpoint, from a budget standpoint, as opposed to outsourcing some of these jobs. It saves us it saves us a lot of money, saves us a lot of time. Where if Mike is over at Haddon, but we've got a boiler issue over at Tatum, it's a simple call and a walkie-talkie to get Mike over. Another thing is having the professional advice and opinion from our district architect of record. They are licensed in their profession for a reason. Having their opinion on certain maintenance items is crucial in determining what we need to do to take care of our buildings. Preventative maintenance. This is something, I'm going to go back to HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. We on a periodic basis, every unit in the district is checked, especially now more than ever. This is something that, again, protecting our investment, we have to do all the time in order to do so. So preventative maintenance and having the tools, I'm getting to my next bullet point, we invested in a tool that can help us track some things that we may lose sight of maintaining. But I'll get into that tool a little bit later because that's a big part of this presentation. So I wanted the board to see and understand where we've been in terms of expenditures over the past, this is 6 years. As you can see, there's an upward trend there, okay? So I guess this is a way to show where we're putting our money where our mouth is. So you can see that we're doing our best to not have to go to that $35 million referendum to just make sure that their walls are standing. Okay. A couple key points on that last slide is you can see that the 15% increase. Expenditures the last few years, last time it decreased, it was from 14-15 to 15-16, hasn't happened since then. And I wanted to sort of look at it as, pre-referendum, we've increased our budget even since then. So again, maintaining our buildings, that way we can spend more directly on education later on. Okay. So that capital forecast tool I was talking about, don't get hung up on vernacular here. So capital forecast tool is just what this software is called. Another name, its name is preventative maintenance tool. But what it is and what it does for us. So we actually had to in order to get this started, something called a facility conditions assessment was done by a third-party company. That was done last school year. Wasn't for COVID, all this work probably would have been done sooner. But here we are, we have it all now. And what they did was basically tour the district and do a walkthrough of the district with our staff and give a condition assessment of everything. That includes our buildings themselves, any equipment that we have, and by equipment I mean that could be our unit vents, that could be our boilers, that could be our lawnmowers, it could be our weed whackers. All this stuff is cataloged now in this capital forecast tool.
Speak up a little bit, Mike, they're having some trouble here.
Okay, sorry about that. So what does this tool tell us? It puts everything in a one uniform system and categorizes it all. And it also, it tells us, okay, this item, based on the condition it was originally assessed and put into the system with, well, you need to replace this in year X. So for example, if we have a vehicle that is 5 years old, okay, well, we think it needs to be replaced in 5 years. Just an example, but this is everything that is cataloged in the system has an estimated useful life. Now, keep in mind, we have the ability to adjust that whenever we want. This is a living document. If we have this software and it says, okay, this vehicle is due to be replaced in 5 years, but perhaps, based on how well we've maintained this, we can keep this for another couple of years. So we can go in there and adjust and extend the useful life of that specific item in the software to later on. So this is just one page of it. It's a software with a lot of information, a lot of data. I didn't name the company or tool. It's from Dude Solutions, okay? But it is a web-based system, and this is how we access it. This is also one of the many different types of reports that we can pull from the system. So what are we looking at here? So these are 12 broad categories that the system has everything in, okay? So if I'm looking under 2022, based on the conditions assessment that were originally put in the capital forecast tool, we have a grand total of a little over $1 million of various items around the district that are due and at their useful life. Now again, this report was ran on Tuesday. It has since changed. It changes every day. Every time that our maintenance staff fixes something, repairs something, replaces something, a number in this tool is changed somewhere. Okay. Now, to sort of go back to what I was saying at the beginning of this presentation. So, capital improvements. That tool can also help us determine what should we be investing a lot of money in terms of an improvement level. Well, these are just 3 reasons what would trigger us to go to a capital improvement. Again, our architect of record, if you saw AOR anywhere in my presentation, that's our architect of record. The professional advice of him and our certified educational facilities manager, for us, that's Tim McFerrin. Statutorily, every district has to have a CEFM, and that's, again, Tim McFerrin. We can now use this capital forecast tool. This will help us determine what we are due to replace in however far we put in something for useful life. Go back here a minute. So the board has approved an improvement for the A-wing roof restoration. That is somewhere in that $479,000 number under the year 2022. Okay. And then again, board support for capital improvement. That takes there's a formal approval process for this all. So again, your support helps. Great. So having said all that, for any questions?
Is this the same system that the principals use in their buildings to put in work orders when they notice something's broken?
Yes, it is.
Wonderful.
So when something is, when we get a work order, or school, if you're going to say a school dude, same thing. When we get a work order to fix or replace something, now, when it's done, this system will automatically be updated to say, oh, this window is now fixed. You can throw the useful life of this further down the line because we just repaired it.
So how long have we been using this particular system?
Maybe 6 months.
6 months, okay.
Yeah, and again, it would have definitely been done sooner. But the facilities condition assessment had been done last school year. This company was definitely affected by COVID. That pushed things down a little bit, but yeah, probably around 6 months.
my final thing that I love the slide where you showed the different years, because the reason why I thought it was important to look at these details by years is that we're generally like 1 million next year, almost 1 million the year after that. Then I think it's like 3.6. And then in 2025, it jumps up to 7 million. So obviously, as you mentioned, it's a living document, but you know, for facilities and finance to keep an eye on, right? That's going to be hard to jump that high to 7 million. So we kind of have to work some things earlier, or, you know, to make sure that we don't get hit with an unexpected large charge that we can't afford down the road.
Sure. And I could go, I don't know what the latest year we have something as a useful life for this system, but I just took the next 5 years. So this could go to maybe 2050.
Thank you. This is great. Did we reach out to the community members who were to let them know about this? I know there was a committee at one point.
I actually did. I reached out to the specific committee member. I was supposed to present this presentation to that committee maybe last year or the year before, and I actually did.
Okay, thank you. But yeah, I thought this was great. Thank you.
So,
Oh, sorry.
oh, no, go ahead, Linda.
I can't see that you're
Sure.
behind me. So you talked about having a useful life, which is great. And I know with the bond referendum that there's so much deferred maintenance that we got ourselves into that place. But if someone can go in and extend the useful life, which I agree with, we don't want to replace something just because a document says this is when it should be replaced. But what controls are in place that someone isn't extending the useful life of something if it really shouldn't be extended? Because we could get back into that place, because it's an electronic way to kick the can down the road.
Again, relying on professional opinion from our architect of record, and also Tim. I mean, I can't tell you how many times Tim and I have discussed something like this unit vent, and we're gonna fix it. But I'll tell you what, at some point in the near future, we've got to replace this just because it's right there on the edge. And so, like I said, with hey, we can repair something in some useful life. The opposite too. It's something that I mean, I'll just take a vehicle for argument's sake. Just this vehicle. It's we've only had it 7 years, but we've used it a lot, and it's something we may need to replace in the next year or so. So again, the opposite way. If just by examining and understanding the true condition of something might be sooner than what is on paper, we certainly do that as well.
Although you bring up an interesting point, and I really like that, you know, you want a safety net in there so we don't push it down the road. But I do think it's important for the public to understand that there's a difference between maintenance and capital improvement. Like, you can repair your car all you want, but after 30 years, it still may be time to put in a lot of money to get a new car. And I'm trying to create an analogy that the problems that we had last referendum weren't all entirely, you know, wasn't all like deferred maintenance. It was more things are old and they just got to be replaced at a certain time.
Right. I was really, the answer that I was looking for is that there are trained professionals that are making that decision on, yes, we can extend the useful life, or no, we shouldn't extend the useful life. Okay.
It usually becomes cost prohibitive, or you can't buy parts anymore to extend it. And I can tell you, in public school buildings, the decision's driven when you can afford the capital improvement more than whether it's cost effective. I mean, it's the sad reality of it.
Yeah, to Heather's point too, I thought it was interesting because we talk about how all of a sudden we have all these expenses. But when you look at that chart, look 5 years out, we're going from 1 million to 7 million. And so if you're not able to do that, 7 million, and then the next year, then it's 7 million plus whatever it was. I think it's almost 100,000. So then, I mean, or is it 7? Was that 7? Mm-hmm. Yeah, 7 million. Big numbers. I think it speaks to the fact that a lot of them, a lot of the maintenance on a building like this, it just accrues and does get so expensive. And so when we went out for the referendum, a lot of that, I know there was a lot of people saying we haven't kept up with the maintenance, but it's expensive. And it's also but you also have that bubble where things just start going at the same time. And so we do have to look ahead at that.
But just to clarify, though, the district always kept up with the maintenance. What the district didn't do in regular cycles was keep up with the capital maintenance of replacing it, because buildings have to function. Your HVAC system will always function. Like, for example, the replacement that we're doing for the chillers for the wing that you're sitting in had to be done because it wasn't going to work probably another season. So, I mean, I think the district has done probably too good a job with its maintenance because we prolonged things so far beyond their life cycle.
And the bubbles you see probably correspond to previous referendum where work was all done at once.
Yeah.
So, as we talked about last time or at the working meeting, that we had talked about during the last referendum that wasn't it, that wasn't all, that there would be probably another one down the pike, a wing, windows on that list. But there are other things that were bought with that money over the 1990 or the 2000 bond and the 91. And I wish Angela Melzi was here, she'd rattle those numbers off the top of her head. But that's what you're seeing. You're seeing the end of life for things that we bought previously. It never stops.
And I think the bubble that you showed was due primarily to the roof. That was like a $4 million cost for it. Like,
roofs and windows.
Yeah, like that's the concern is, there are going to be things that happen. There are going to be cars that become defunct, prematurely. We can handle it. There's some cushion. There's like a roof, like a $5 million expense. We don't have $5 million just sitting around. I mean, something that you gotta plan for.
You saw in my presentation, there's some districts, they can handle that expense in their operating budget. That is not something we have the luxury of here. If you go to a huge district like, let's say, Washington Township, they can probably fund that out of their operating budget, the roof of one of their many schools.
Must be nice.
To state what's been said many times in the past, but to make sure we don't lose sight of it, the last referendum, I heard from so many townspeople that they preferred more frequent, smaller referendums than letting things pile up. And the thing that was a shame was that we had identified many more things that should have been done, that we wanted to do, that we didn't do, so that the referendum was affordable and could be passed. And I mention all that because if we push off doing another referendum because it's uncomfortable, then we're only going to be able to do the bare minimum rather than maybe do what deserves to be done. So we should keep an eye on, thinking it takes at least 2 years to kind of plan the referendum. It takes 1 year to get everything together of what you want to do, and then another year to get it out in the public at least. So just keep it in mind.
One question that might be out there for anybody that's listening is, this is Haddonfield. Our taxes are insanely high. How could it possibly be that we don't have the money sitting around to afford a roof on a building, or $2, $3, $4 million expense that comes at one time? How? Our town is so affluent. And the answer, I'd be curious for additional thoughts, but the way I've thought about it is, our amount of money, first of all, that we get from the state is just pales in comparison to what other districts get. We just don't get the state funding that other districts do. It's just a part of living in Haddonfield. And other tax revenues, I don't think we have the luxury of other bases of businesses that contribute so much money to our taxes. So we just get, our budget is just smaller than a lot of the other districts around us.
Well, there's also a philosophy part to it too. So if you either borrow the money when you need it or you save up, right? They're the two ways to get it. But it's current taxpayers saving up for something they may never use. It's kind of like, it's akin to paying full price for a road. And the current taxpayer would pay for that road in a 1 year, but it's being driven up for 30 years. And you move out of town in 2 years. Your payment and your tax bill was a benefit to the person who bought your house, who didn't have to pay for that road for 28 years. It's kind of the same thing from a savings standpoint. You can save it, but you're asking the current taxpayer who might not see the benefit of the expenditure at the point of the expenditure because you saved it. Current, when you spread the load over a payment over a long period of time, the taxpayer pays for it for the portion of the time they're using it. And by using it means when they own their house and they're paying taxes. So that's another reason that when you publicly finance something, that you spread it out, you spread the pain over the current taxpayers at the current time.
Yeah.
I think, Justin's point, I think, is that though our tax burden is higher than someone who, let's say, lives in Washington Township, if they're getting more money from the state.
Oh, of course.
So I think that's one thing we want the public to know is that we are as taxpayers carrying a bigger burden than some taxpayers might be because of the lack of funding we get from the state.
Well, and this is kind of like last week, I said, number one school district south of Trenton. Why are we the only one south of Trenton that's a J district? Why is the South always underperforming the North? And it kind of goes to that too. It's historical funding levels when, not to bring politics into this, but at the state level, North Jersey, they're denser populated. They just get more state funding where everything we get, it's that Quaker grab yourself by the boot and go do it. That's the result of years of that, right? So, but in credit, the state has started to equalize the funding to the point where we've seen increases. We have, some of our neighboring districts, Haddon Township, has lost money, right? Right, Chuck? That at least from an equalization standpoint, the state has helped us, which is going to help us. And that's why we've been able to save money for things like the air handler. We're paying for that. The turf eventually will be done. We did the floor, in the gym. Like there's things that we have saved up for that we probably wouldn't have been able to had the state not been improving our funding over the last few years. Love for it to continue.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Now, that was very interesting for those online. Now we're going to move into our committee reports and then the voting and action portion of the meeting. So feel free to stay on. Maddie, you were a trooper, you stayed on, but hopefully unless you're really excited about this stuff, feel free. So moving into, we did a lot of committee updates in our working session. So I'll just go down. Has anyone met in the last week or wants to redo their update? Jamie?
No, thank you.
Your next meeting is scheduled?
I don't know offhand, but it is scheduled.
Fair. Justin, finance facilities?
No further updates since the working session.
Great. Policy? Lynn?
No updates since last week.
Okay. Communications?
No updates since last week.
All right. Tom, any public negotiations update? No updates. All right. Anyone attend a PTA update? Attended PTA or other assigned? I attended the Haddonfield Municipal Alliance meeting of Monday night. Danny Cavana must have been a force of nature. Congratulations, Danny. They were very sad to see him transition out of that role as the student representative on the HMA. They talked about a program of distributing awareness paraphernalia. In this case, it's sunglasses for the eighth grader dance, as well as the junior senior proms, to just raise awareness of making safe choices when it came to alcohol and drug use, to not to. And then they were talking about their budgeting, which seemed to have taken a hit a little bit from the pandemic or just not used and allocated. So they were talking about ways that they could come back. They were trying to get the bad car, it's banned to drink and drive accident demonstration for the lawn and they would be reaching out to the administration for that. All in all, it was their first meeting in a while, so they were just kicking back off and excited that the borough is reconstituting the HMN. Now I'll move to Assistant Superintendent report, Dr. Priolo.
I was just going to give an update on the Tatum principal search. We are down to 2 finalists from a pool that began with 65. From there, we have had a total of 6 days, 6 interview sessions. So Mr. Klaus and I will be meeting with the 2 finalists on Tuesday with the hopes of having a recommended candidate on the May agenda.
Wonderful news. Mr. Klaus, Superintendent's report.
Okay, I'm going to talk about a few things. First of all, Mike mentioned it twice. As we know, tonight is that we're adopting our budget. It's been approved by the county, going through the process. We're pleased with the budget. It addresses a lot of areas. It's talked about the maintenance, but it also looks at a lot of things educationally. Tomorrow, we'll be posting several jobs you approved. A new full-time nurse at Central Middle, our shifting of interventionists, the behaviorists. So there's a lot of good things that go in that budget that are really powerful for our students. Just in the middle of all this craziness we're experiencing, Gino and his team, they were presented at a national ruler conference today. And so it's one of those things where in my newsletter tomorrow, I'm going to talk about security. That we spent so much time talking about COVID, we're forgetting to talk about everything else we do in the school district, right? So there's some things we like to plug right there. So, presenting at national conferences is a great thing. And we're still hitting other things. And we're still doing our security work. We're still doing all those other good work. So I wanted to make sure to start spending more time acknowledging that. When Dave asked me any more accommodations, we have to start. We have teachers who've been doing amazing things. Her name just escaped me. Who got the seesaw? Dr. Mary, who got the seesaw?
Jen Harding.
Jen Hunt was acknowledged by Seesaw as a national award. We've got to start really focusing on that. I'll talk about COVID. That's what we have to do. But there's so much good stuff going on. The vaccination plan's going on. I have some COVID updates that with some sad news and then some upcoming presentations. So the vaccination plan. So Monday, it's the 3rd, and again the 24th, we're going to be busing students. We're going to be driving to the mega site of Morristown by Virtua. Students must complete their form by Friday at 1 because we have to let them Virtua know who's coming. It went out today. It happened quick. Like we found out we could do this Wednesday. We got out the notice today. We have to have information tomorrow so we can go Monday. We wanted to have it quick for a couple of reasons. Number one is end of the year activities. Everyone want to be fully vaccinated, so they don't have to quarantine for close contacts. Plus, we also want to get there before some of the big events, right? Because we all know that in 3 weeks, a student who gets a shot may not feel well for a day or two. We didn't want you to miss your prom because you got your vaccination. We wanted to make sure that those things were not in conflict. Playoffs in sports. So we wanted to really move on this as quickly as possible. There are the dates. It's open to families and staff. We opened it when we could. And here's just some numbers. We have 585 students who will be 16 or older as of May 1st. Nearly 200 are already vaccinated, which is great. We are expecting, based on the survey I sent out, about 150 plus students to go here. So we'll be looking at having nearly half the high school vaccinated by June, when they're 2 weeks after the shot. We'll be much safer then. And it's just special thanks. These are our community members who really helped us get this together. And there's the team at Virtua who worked with us. And this would not have happened without them. So there's a lot of good, caring people there who took time out of their world to make sure we got this. The rains are finally coming.
Wow,
there they are.
Really?
COVID numbers. We all know this routine. I'm going to talk about that blue bar in a second, because that's how it just dropped in the last day or two. There's our active cases in the district, our dashboard. I'm going back to the contact tracing and spread. I was giving these numbers in the fall, if you remember, I stopped giving them. You can see that in the high school right now, we have 74 students who are out because of COVID. The numbers in black are the number of positive students, or positive cases. You see there's 9 in the high school with a total of 128 kids quarantining and 12 students who are positive. This is not count travel quarantine or other. This is just simple close contact within school. We knew the numbers would go up for close contact, not just because there's more cases, but because we're full capacity. That was one of the risks, right? We're now instead of 4 people going out for a case, we're putting out 8 people for the case. That's part of it. We also have, unfortunately, with like track, there's been track cases, they team in pods, so that helps control it. But once we get beyond the classroom, the cases become more difficult to track and more contact tracing. Back there, you know, active surveillance by the sea. We are officially, our high school is officially under active surveillance by the Camden County Department of Health. The numbers in the recent weeks have been high enough that they've taken notice. They tapped us on the shoulder and said, what's going on over there? Right, so we are now on the radar of the Camden County Department of Health, aware that our numbers in the high school are high. We found out this week, this probably surprises everyone, but maybe not, another big party last Saturday night, unmasked with a positive student at the party. So as we are hoping to as we're hoping to come off the hill from the last social event, it appears we may have another one right on the corner. So as you're going to find out in a couple of minutes, as we've gone to yellow or moderate risk, which is an advantage, this is counterbalanced by the fact that, yeah, we may be able to reduce quarantine. We may be able to cut these things back. We may be closing a high school. Like, that's where we are right now. And this can't be ignored, right? So we're now, like I said, under active surveillance by the Camden County Department of Health because of our case rate. And we are very cognizant that it is likely, based on what we found out, that we're going to get hit with another surge within the next 4 days, which will mean it would be hard to escape having to take some dramatic action about closing activities and your school.
And Chuck, that speaks to some of the emails we've gotten today with the announcement that our region is now in the moderate level 2. The questions we're getting, well, now you're going to go ahead and reduce the quarantines effective Monday, right? And the answer is not that simple. As Mr. Klaus was explaining, the metrics of our regional numbers are now getting very good. They've decreased 3 times in the last 3 reports. However, we're currently being monitored by the county. The high school is being monitored by the county. And I can't emphasize enough some of the frustration when it comes to some of the events that are entirely avoidable. And we know that, people have to live their lives. People are going out. People are doing some social things. However, when we're talking about gatherings of 40 plus children gathering in the house unmasked, there are consequences of that. We wish there were. It's painful every time we send out a letter telling the student that they're going to be out for 2 weeks. It's painful when we have to correspond with the family, explaining to us the impact that it's having on their children. We understand. Many of us have our own children who are currently under quarantine. We don't want to do it. So we're just really imploring the community to really take some common sense, reasonable measures so we can do everything possible to make sure your children are in school through the end of the school year and healthy beyond that.
Thanks, Judy. That's exactly right. We're putting an open play. Unfortunately, there's only 20 people watching right now at the board meeting, right? I wish there were more. But I think that the frustration is real because, especially for those who are doing the right thing, right? Who are following the rules that are impacted by others, which is unfortunately life in a lot of ways. But here's our charts of the positive.
Before you move to this, sorry. Do you have any working theories on why it's 9 to 74 and 3 to 44? Like why the percentage of active is lower?
Because the high school were involved in activities, extracurriculars. With extracurricular activity, might hit 15 people, where a classroom contact only hit 6.
Okay.
Just because you talked about how people are having parties and it's impacting everyone, and I know Madeline mentioned it in her student report, which was fantastic. And I think all your communications going out about COVID are great, but there's a lot of information. Is it worthwhile or something to consider whether there's a separate email solely focused on, we've got end of year celebrations coming up so that they don't have to be canceled? You know, we're really asking the community to, you know, not have large group gatherings indoors unmasked, or for the public. And also, I'm glad Madeline knew about it, but I don't know, has it been discussed at the high school? Because I know obviously for good reasons,
I'm sorry, Miss.
so the freshman dance was pushed back for good reason, but the sophomore dance is coming up, and then the freshman dance will happen, and then you've got your junior and senior proms. So I'm just wondering, like,
Their students are aware. So there are students who are quarantining themselves for their dances, right? They're very aware of that, right? And so I was talking to Miss McHale today, and she said there's freshmen who know who was at that party who won't go near them, like they're staying opposite sides of rooms from people. I try. They are very aware of that. I mean, we can put out a communication, but you know, the entire, I think the music.
No, you're saying it's not awareness, it's people making different personal choices, and that's a shame.
I think that's what it is. That's a good way to phrase it. Yeah.
So you're saying they now need to be aware that these things can go away?
That's what I'm saying.
That's,
If they have one party and then they ruin their whole entire class celebration.
I think it's been the whole last year, really. I mean, it's not, it's kind of been the, you know, like, it's a tough year.
We have our numbers. You can see they're down a little bit from last week. It's still high. The yellow, the high schools where we're getting hit the hardest right now. And this is the good news. We are now back to level 2. We're in moderate and decreasing pretty rapidly. Matter of fact, the entire state right now, for the first time, maybe 6 or 8 months, is moderate. So the entire state now is yellow, and the numbers are decreasing. There's counted the Central West right above us. Their numbers are incredibly low. They're down to their case rate's 16. So that's a real positive. It looks like not only down, it looks like we're stay down, not just dipping down. And once again, this is, you can see the percent decrease. We are still trending down. Now the numbers this week are significantly less. So this, you realize this report comes out on the 24th. This report comes out every Saturday for the week before. So we're now 6 days into this level already. The numbers this week are down significantly from last week in all 4 counties that we're involved with. So this trend looks like it's going this way. And that's for a lot of reasons. So right now, I think 49% of the state eligible people have their first shots, and 34% are fully vaccinated, percent of the people. So that helps. So there's a lot of reasons why we believe it's going to be continuing in that trend. So that's a positive thing we're looking at. The quarantining, we just spoke about this, right? So this is where the decision making, I went over this a couple of weeks ago. But if we look, we are now right here. This is where we are for close contacts, which means, we have the ability to make the decision to go down to 10 days or 7 days with a negative test. We're going to be talking as a district pandemic team tomorrow, probably saying, what do we feel? Do we feel this is safe? We are under surveillance by the county. We have to make that decision, right? And I think Maddie alluded to it. She said people are getting careless because they think that everything's good. If we do that quarantining, will that feed that philosophy? Or the other side is, are we now shrugging our shoulders at science and saying, even though the data says it's safe to go 10, we're going to go 14 to be extra cautious? I mean, both sides of those conversations, I could argue both sides very easily. So that's a conversation we'll have. We will certainly communicate our new quarantining ideas out there. But and then the question becomes, do we quarantine differently for the high school, which is under surveillance, as opposed to the middle school, which is not under surveillance? Right? I mean, there's families though across. So there's a lot of that discussion that has to go on. And I know that you realize that these conversations are never 5 minutes, right? We're on with our nurses and Dr. Ntiki for hours sometimes, talking about all the different sides of it. trying to make the best decision, safest decision, but also not making a blind decision that simply is the easy decision, which is stay with 14 days, right? I mean, that's it. We have constantly, as a district, pushed to try to be on the cutting edge to see things that are coming and make sure we're doing safe, responsible. The example is we went 3 feet 10 days before we knew 3 feet was coming. 10 days before the CDC said it, right? So we did those things. When we look at quarantining, we in the fall you quarantine everyone on the team when everything happened. Now we're like, oh, listen, we know that Bobby wasn't on the field for 10 minutes. He has quarantine. We know he wasn't possibly exposed to the player on the other team because he wasn't on the field with the kid. So we are becoming more surgical, trying to make those really hard, tough calls. But there's a lot of reason for caution right now, and we'll have to balance that, and we'll certainly communicate out what our final decision on that is.
Did the county, because the high school is under active surveillance, did they suggest that you stick with the 14
They did not.
They don't.
They did not make that recommendation, and they will not close the school, right? So that they might say, Chuck, you might want to think about closing the school, and depending on the tone of voice, I would close the school. But ultimately, when someone calls the county and said, you close the school, said, no, we didn't, Chuck closed the school. That's what would happen. So it ultimately will fall on my decision on what. There's the case rate by the county. This is, it's interesting to look at, but it's just our county, not the regional area. You can see the numbers are trending down. Any questions on that before I just upcoming presentations once again? So this is what we have coming up. So there you go. Now, all right, that's it.
Adam did not leave me any notes, and I'm not in a bad mood, so I'm just going to skip over board president report and open up the floor to public comment. So, John, if you could pop the slide for those online, all 24 of you. If you are interested in making a comment, this is your time. All right. When the slide goes up, you will see a number to dial. We ask you that you stop listening to YouTube and you listen through the phone. You turn down the volume, and when we address you by your phone number, you hit *6 to toggle your mute off so that we can hear you. You will provide your name and your street. You don't provide your full address, and then we have a 3-minute comment period per person. If you have more to say than that, you can get back in the line and address us again, but everyone gets their turn. So we'll give it a few minutes. The slide only just went up for those viewing. And just to verify with our board secretary, there were no written comments submitted this week in the form, and no letters to the editor, so to speak, for the board to read out loud today.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I'm also recognizing at this time that there are no members of the public who would ask questions in attendance, and in attendance is one reporter from the retrospect. And at any time, you can access a recording of this meeting on the YouTube's channel, HSD Broadcast, where this and all school board meetings are posted for viewing at a later date. I will leave the public comment open until the turn of 8:23, which will be 1 minute from now. Okay, I will officially close the public comment portion of the meeting. And we'll move on with our agenda. We're moving into the action items. First up is governance. We are accepting the monthly suspension, HIV, vandalism, and violence reports submitted by Dr. Piolo. A resolution to abolish policy 2415.01, academic standards, as it was superseded by policy that was approved last month, correct? Yes. We are also for policy approval in second reading and adoption, the family leave, which is a new mandated policy, as well as an update to our school volunteer policy. And in that also has a thank you from the board for all the volunteers that have made lunchtime possible. This policy will now make it possible for you to volunteer up to 20 hours a month. And we also would like to acknowledge what would you?
Resolution.
A resolution, thank you, of the secure storage of firearms. Can I get a motion? So, motion by Heather, seconded by Jamie. Discussion.
I have a discussion on, not a point of not passing it, but on possibly taking a look at how we proceed with the HIV reports. I feel like, and Maddie alluded to when we're talking about equity and really the awareness around racial slurs or any kind of prejudice for gender or gender identification. And so when we talk about type of alleged behaviors or protected category, I understand, but it's general. It's race, color, national origin, race, ancestry. And then for alleged behaviors, insulting remarks, we do have one of the N-word there, so that's helpful. My point is that if the more specific and precise we can be when we're talking about these protected classes, the more we can identify as a community if there's any rise in a target against a said group.
Well, we do that, but that's just what, the report's is a pretty standard report. I mean, we track that data with
So
ourselves.
you do,
Right?
so
Yeah,
you're,
yes.
so you have.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yes,
okay.
that all that information about, and it's called My K-12 is the program we use. And that does that will track all the different things. So our report, the report you see is a very generic report kicked out by My K-12 to let you know, these are the general types of HIV that were experienced here. But it intentionally is kind of vague. It's that way
for protection.
For protection.
Okay.
So
And I was wondering
both the victim
that,
and the
too.
aggressor
Okay.
can't be identified through reports.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. I just wanted to make sure you understand, so that we can identify any kind of rise of a certain targeted population.
Just as a point of highlight, one of these reports was a 45-page report.
Oh, okay.
And they're very in-depth, and Mr. Klaus and I analyze them very thoroughly and coordinate with Sandy Horowitz, who's our safety, who really does a great job.
Great, thank you.
And our twice annual report is also the data coming from that same system that she presents to us.
That'll be in June, correct?
The June one, so now in 2 months, we'll get an update for the January thing. I would like to just have a discussion on the secure storage of firearms resolution. Much like this is the time of year where I gave an update on the Haddonfield Municipal Alliance where, make sure that you've secured the alcohol, make sure you've disposed of prescription drugs, make sure you've locked up, active prescriptions so that there's not an enticement for the children in your home to get curious. I was very encouraged to see this on the agenda, that it extends to another really common, it's with more than one gun per person in America, legal gun ownership. Our population is 370 million. We have more than that number of legally registered guns in America. So to say it is as common to have a gun in your home as it is to have a prescription medication that could make your child sick or ill, you're just as likely to have an instrument of destruction that could really change your life for a very terrible way. So I really applaud the acknowledgement that you should be having a plan and really following through that plan to lock up your weapons while you're home.
I just want to add, I think it's important to note that anytime anyone talks about guns, people feel like it's a political thing. This is not at all to be a judgment against gun ownership. This is just to acknowledge that we have a gun violence problem in our country and that our kids are impacted, and that when we secure our guns safely, which means unloaded, locked, with firearms and ammunition separately, that we can do a lot to minimize firearm injuries. And there's a rise in suicide and unintentional shootings and even school shootings. Almost 80% of school shooters are students or former students, and almost 80% of them get the gun from a friend or family member. Same with suicide and unintentional shootings. Those guns are taken from friends or family members. So if we were to secure them safely, we can reduce firearm injuries for children by up to 85%. So this is just an acknowledgement of that and a reminder to the community of the importance of locking them up, and also that it is New Jersey law. We have a child access prevention law. You cannot allow a minor to easily access. So. So do we want to move to amend, part of the resolution says to send out the information in English and Spanish.
Yeah.
And my understanding is we don't have any English as a second language owners in town, that maybe we could just strike the Spanish.
I'll second that.
So we'll do two votes, vote on the amendment and then vote on the entire governance package. So we can do a yes vote on the amendment. Those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now, Mr. Catalano, take roll call. Not roll call, take the vote, please. Call the question. Right, I'll do it for Lenmar and Marco. Call the question, sir.
Ms. Crockett,
Yes.
Ms. Kudner,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hoagerl,
Yes.
Mr. Bedford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
and Mr. Vecchio.
Yes.
Moving on to curriculum and special education, we will be approving field trips, conferences, travel, and maybe someday soon overnight travel trips. A resolution for a student to receive some homebound instruction. A resolution between Goldbook and the Haddonfield Board of Education to provide web-based access to instructional interventions. A resolution for a student to attend transitional program at Real Center. A resolution between Learning Ally and the Haddonfield Board of Education for a license renewal for services. And a resolution to approve the FOSS science material budget for, I take it, the upcoming year.
Yes.
Correct.
All right, super. Any question? I mean, any comments or discussion? Seeing none, please call the question. Oh, yes, that's right. Motion to vote?
So moved. Second. Lynn. Amy.
All right. Seeing no discussion again, please call the question.
Ms. Kudner,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hoagerl,
Yes.
Mr. Bedford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crockett,
Yes.
Next, we'll move to personnel. where will we be approving the list of transfers, salary upgrades, mentoring, extracurricular coaching appointments, leaves of absences, and resignations. The reemployment of non-represented and represented certified staff for the upcoming school year. An approval of athletic and non-athletic stipends. An approval for Donald Gorecki to proctor AP exams. An approval of the 2021 summer ESY employment from July 5th to August 5th at Elizabeth Haddon. A resolution to approve the reduction of hours for a kindergarten teacher down to halftime. An approval for Luis Bayona to provide asynchronous video Spanish lessons for grades 3 to 5 at Central. And an approval of employees to provide counseling services at a per diem summer rate with a do not exceed clause. A resolution to approve 2 additional math committee stipends. An approval to submit to the Camden County Superintendent the contract of Dr. Priolo as Assistant Superintendent for the upcoming year. An approval to submit to the Camden County Business Administrator the contract for Mr. Catalano as our business administrator for the upcoming year. Can I get a motion? Lynn?
Second.
Justin? Any discussion?
Yes, you'll notice on the retirement, we have Robin Ryder, a middle school math teacher retiring. 36 years, which is a great career. Ms. Ryder prided herself on being able to individually identify and work with students and help them progress. That was one of the things she felt was her strength. Is my understanding she's also an excellent kickball player, which she might not have this on her resume, but everyone else didn't know that. So she's going to be greatly missed. She taught all kinds of subjects and it had a real impact on over 3 decades, closing on 4 decades on our students. So that's going to be a really sad loss, but I know she's going to be happy. She's planning on relaxing and spending time with her family and most specifically her nieces and nephews. So congratulations to Ms. Ryder and certainly thank you for all your time. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Chuck. Seeing no other questions, please call the question.
Ms. Hope,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hogarth,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crooked,
Yes.
and Ms. Kutner.
Yes.
In the area of business and finance, we are going to approve the contract with, I take the DJ for the dances for the freshman, sophomore, and junior prom, and accept a donation of money for the intention of building a Gaga pit for the Tatum fifth grade committee, and approve a contract with POC Associates to install district-wide radio communications. And I wrote a note. I hope those walkie-talkies will make for better comms when you tell Mr. McFerrin to use a shovel. And approve an amendment for the number 1 for IDEA grant applications to apply carryover in basic and in preschool, and approval for amendment 2 to the IDEA grant application to reallocate budget amounts in various line items. And I recommend the adoption of the 21-22 budget that was listed below, published in the paper in the retrospect last week. And there was a very thick version of the paper as all the schools have published their budgets. Do I have to read this out loud? All right, super. Approve a memorandum of agreement for a successor collective negotiation agreement with the Haddonfield Administrators and Supervisors Association. We also will approve a sidebar agreement between the Board of Education and the Haddonfield Education Association regarding a 12-month work year for the child study team members. Approval to award bid for hardscape improvements at the Haddonfield Memorial High School to Ocean Construction. Congratulations. Approval to award health benefits broker to Brown & Brown Benefits Advisors. We're also giving approval to pay bills, to also budget transfers, and accepting the board secretary report for the month of March. And last but not least, a cash summary report for the month of March. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion Linda, second Jamie. Any discussion?
I have a question. Twice for 4B, twice we have made the distinction that we're not accepting the donation of the Gaga pit. We're accepting the donation of money to be applied toward that. And it's been, that distinction has been made twice. Does that need to be, does the language need to be changed here?
It's a good point. Yeah, why do I read it that way is basically the question.
Yeah, twice. Last weekend, this week.
Because we're accepting the donation of money to build it, not a finished product. You know, they're not delivering a Gaga pit. They're paying for the school district to construct a Gaga pit. I guess it's just me.
Okay.
I think correct me if I'm wrong, but you make that distinction because the school board has the option of influencing perhaps whether it's a Gaga pit or playground material, something that we would deem safe and acceptable rather than just something that might be picked out by another group. Does that explain what, it's like, we're not just accepting something that they pick out, like we would reflect on it and then make sure that it meets the school, the state requirements for school safety.
Well, I guess all of that, yes, no, but I mean, just, we're not accepting anything. We're accepting money to build it on the behalf. That's the intention for the money. They're not delivering a Gaga pit and dropping it in.
I'll be honest with you. I think they're making the purchase and we are putting it together. I think that's fine because there is assembly that these things require. Yeah, I mean, these things are on the agenda mostly for policy and recognition purposes.
I only asked the question
Because I've read it twice that way.
Yes.
Yes, no, and it was intentional on my behalf.
Okay. I'm fine with it as is, but.
It doesn't have to be with what Mike just explained, so it didn't need to be.
Yep.
So I just have a question about A. The contract for the freshman dance still says April 23rd. I know that's moved to May 8th. That needed to be changed on the contract. They know.
They know, yeah, they've been rescheduled, yes.
Was there a rain date provision? I honestly.
Yeah,
didn't.
well,
They can call and confirm. They actually scheduled the dance when the DJ could make it again. That's part of the plan. Moving a dance sounds like a very simple thing to do. It is not a simple thing to do, not at all. So there's a lot of parts to getting a dance together. So yeah, that was one of the first things you do is you call the DJ. So you DJ. Otherwise, Mr. McHale's DJ, and no one wants that.
Not seeing any other comment, please call the question.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes.
Ms. Hoger,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes, abstain on K.
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crooked,
Yes.
Ms. Kuttner,
Yes.
and Ms. Hoag.
Finally, approval of the following minutes, the regular meeting of the 18th, the executive session of the 18th, and the regular meeting of March 25th. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Justin and Jamie was quicker on the. Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the question.
Ms. Hoger,
Yes.
Mr. Benford,
Yes.
Vice President Seidel,
Yes?
Mr. Vecchio,
Yes.
Ms. Crooked,
Yes.
Ms. Kuttner,
Yes.
Ms. Hoag,
Yes.
Ms. Paoli,
Yes to 5C, and I'll abstain on 5A and B.
All right, super. Any items for future consideration by the board?
Dave, I don't know if this is the right forum for this, and there's only 13 people watching. 11. We had what I'm going to politely characterize as a very unfortunate event in our town this week, with respect to our upcoming commissioners election. And since I know that everybody in this room knows that we don't sit in a room privately and figure out ways to hurt people or to damage their egos, but that we, like our neighbors who coach, our CCD teachers, our charity organizers, we all have a place within our community to offer our time and our skills and devote a little extra time outside of our family and friends. And I think just as members of the community that maybe meet and see and discuss with other people, maybe we could just take the opportunity when we have a chance to express to people that, you know, we're volunteers and like I know our commissioners get a small stipend, but you know, we're in this for the right reasons, and we're going to continue to disagree a lot about very important issues that affect us, but you know, we don't need this kind of these kind of attacks on people, and all it does, and I hope that our neighbors, if anybody listens to this or if we get this message out, that our neighbors recognize that the only impact is discouraging good people from doing this kind of work. I just hope that, you know, that this small group of people who elected to remain anonymous recognize that, you know, whatever their problem is not being solved by something like that. Their problem is much more likely to be solved by active cooperation with the people who do decide to go out and give up their time. So if we as members of the community that are out there can just, you know, get that message out there, I think it would be helpful, and hopefully we could just sort of bring the dialogue back up to a neighborly and normal level.
Thank you. Well said.
To answer your question, it is an appropriate place. See no other items for future consideration.
Beyond what was discussed at the last working session. No future items beyond what was discussed at the last working session, you know, which included you know, potentially looking again at kindergarten, considering whether there were areas to spotlight similar to what we do with guidance counselors, whether it's the arts or sports. Nothing beyond that.
Thank you, Justin. Can I get a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Heather and Jamie. Again, voice vote, ayes have it.
Aye.
Aye.